Hey there, Star Wars Destiny folks. Welcome to release day. That's right, release day for Dicey Companion. So I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend, and the creator, Swag Dean. How are we doing, my friend?
I'm doing well.
All right,
Excited the release is upon us.
that's right. It is release day. So we are on release day going to run through Dicey Companions and tell you how you can get it and how you can draft ARH Destiny. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my Star Wars Destiny friends. Welcome back to the Commando cast and the Dean cast. How's it going, Dean? How are we doing, my friend?
I'm just thrilled to have this at the finish line.
It is the finish line or ish, right? As
Yeah.
the I've released many of these type of kits over the years, and I promise you, my friend, the requests will keep coming in for the next 2 to 3 weeks because we are a small community, but god damn it, we are an aggressive community. So I promise you the edit requests will keep coming in. In fact, I promise you someone will contact you within the next 24 hours saying it's not printing correctly on my computer. Can you solve that problem for me? But
Yes.
regardless,
Very true.
it is release day for Dicey Companions, and in the spirit, let's go ahead and just bring up card number one, just for spirit. We don't have to start going through the cards yet, but Dean, talk to us about the adventure to get to where we are today.
Yeah. Just going back, I wanted to try to bring the draft experience back to the community. We're way deep into the ARH era, and that format had fallen away. So wanted to come up with a way to make them draftable, but none of these sets were designed to be drafted, which is different than the FF8, FFG era, where I think they did think about drafting when they designed the card. So it was quite a challenge, but it was a lot of fun to work, and I'm hoping this will help set up a new format for everybody and just new ways to play with the cards they love.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, I mean, you alone have put in a lot of work on this. I've basically been your admin, for lack of a better term, on getting this set out in terms of doing all the rest. You've been doing all the work in the background, and I've been pumping out the images for you. But this has been a passion of love. I think is an understatement. For 6 months now, 4 months. I mean, I don't keep track. I don't keep the books, but a long time.
Yeah, it's
So
been like something dabbled with for quite some time, but yeah, really focused effort over the last 6 months or so. Yeah.
yeah. All right, awesome. Well, I see no other. So we do have to get the admin stuff out of the way, which I will do. So in the link below is a link because that's how links work. Below in the description below is a link to the Dicey Companions printable file. This is the print and play file. In that file, I've also included multiple copies of the include card, right, which is the one that lets you do pitch to reroll. Obviously, these cards will print, and they're designed at 3.4 inches tall. Point is to print them out, cut them out, and then put them in front of a normal Star Wars Destiny card so that your card backs match. And actually, in this case, I actually retract that statement because you would put them in front of a printed ARH Destiny card so that the card backs match. So I actually retract my statement. Excuse me. Or in colored sleeves, I guess it doesn't matter. But it should all work there as long as your printer settings are set correctly. So, with all of that said, let's go back to Swag Dean, the designer of the set, to walk us through basically from card 1 to card 22. Is that correct?
21.
21. Because it's normally 20 and 21. So, yeah, I was thinking it was 21 and we've been doing
One
this for
moment.
so long. I was 21 to 22. There we go.
Yep. So usually a draft kit, you get four characters, one of each color with one gray. And so it's kind of matching type for type, at least with the last two sets. And so here we start off with DJ in yellow. Did want to try to get more subtypes in with this kit. So here he's bringing Scoundrel and Spy. and he just allows us to turn on the charm or detect mechanics with his ability, and um, open up that card pool, at least for those two types, through the ARH era, which is more prevalent, at least for the detect in the beginning, and then charm in some of the later sets.
Yeah, I mean, I would say without some ability to turn on detect, the early sets are very difficult. I think you did a great balance with this one of balancing detect, which is relatively lightly supported. I think we've had 2 sets now with it, right? Is that correct? And then
Yes,
we
but
had
it's
detect was 3 sets, and we've had 2 sets with charm. Is that correct?
hmm
Yeah.
but a good bit of cards are designed about it because most of each release from ARH is smaller than the FFG ones, but
Hmm.
but most of what they're putting in is like support for what their innovation is or what's the new line of play. So like there's a decent amount of cards specific to ARH that support those two play styles. So we just wanted to make sure that there was an answer for them in the kit.
Sure. Sure. All right. Nice. All right. You ready for number 2?
Yeah, hit me.
Hit me, baby. Poe Dameron.
So here's Poe. I should mention again, we did it in the announcement, but all of the characters are not currently in ARH. You don't have any conflicts there, and they're not going to be in the next set, which is what, the eighth set?
Should be ninth, right?
Yeah, ninth, late set, whatever the set coming out in March of 2024. These characters aren't set to be in it, and so yeah, we have Poe, leader and pilot. You get piloting, so your pilot tricks and all can kick in, and then he can help cycle your cards. As long as you have a non-red card, you can scrap that and draw something else. Hopefully, draw into whatever it is that you're hunting for to make your deck work.
Nice. And then I do want to point out as well, for those of you unfamiliar with the nomenclature, that little bubble box above the die indicates parallel die, which means that you do not have to print out stickers or anything like that. Dean has designed every single card in this set to be what we have started to call in the Destiny world a parallel die, which means that it uses an existing die from one of the previous sets. And in this case, all of the previous sets are FFG, meaning Fantasy Flight, meaning from the original set. So in this case, this is Covert Missions Poe. Ironically, Dean has him at 11, and I think he came out at 1720. Is that correct? Maybe 14, 17, something. He was expensive.
13, 17.
Yeah.
So
So,
there's a little more power in the ARH era, and then his ability is not as strong
right.
as his FFG ability.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so it pushes him down a little bit, and then I think he has 12 health
Right.
from covert missions, so he has less health as well.
Yeah.
So
Sorry. To be clear, that was not a shot at the design. I was just correlating the die to the value and also putting it in perspective. Also, the value of piloting is significantly less in today's era than it was when it first debuted in the final set of FFG Destiny. All right, moving to card number 3. Also, can I just say the art on this is really well done. Great selection, Dean. This is a good looking card,
it's pretty.
if I do say so myself. As the person who did the art. Well,
Yeah,
you
you did
selected
all
the
the
art.
art.
I did all the
Take
cards.
credit.
But,
Yeah, I just found an image on the internet and sent it to you. You had to make all the rest of the things.
right, so this is the Inquisitor. Actually, this one is, I know there are many people out there who dislike AI art, but we had to do it for this one. And aside from the lightsaber shenanigans, pretty good, if I do say so
Yeah, it's not
myself.
bad.
Turned over to you.
It's the images for generic Inquisitor. We couldn't find a high quality image, or we had to use an image for like a famous Inquisitor type
Right.
that maybe ARH was going to use. So like, I didn't want you to look at Inquisitor and be like, "Oh, that's Darth Revan," or
Right.
some other character that has a name. Like, we wanted it to be this is the goon version.
And
Generic
to be
Inquisitor.
clear, if you're going to be upset about somebody about the art, this is an Andrew decision. I couldn't get Dean's art to work. I made the decision and I sent it to Dean and I was like, here's the card you have. So be mad at me, not mad at Dean.
It My choice would have been pretty blurry, and it wouldn't have looked as good against the other ones. I mean, I was really scraping the bottom of the barrel looking for art uh, for generic Inquisitor, which I guess I could have made a different choice. Actually, if we're this does represent one of the choices I made in this kit that I could see people having an issue with is that I don't have a Jedi or a Sith, and that there could have been. There's a logic that if I had chosen to like redo Quinlan and have him be Jedi Sith or something like that was definitely a choice. If he didn't have that modifier side, he probably would have been the choice actually. But um,
But you wanted to use parallel die, and I think
wanted to use
that's
parallel
important.
die
Yeah.
and the I found in testing so like the in the Allies of Necessity kit the characters were 11, 11, 10, and I found that having a 9 was very helpful. So
Hmm.
that was another reason is that like I wanted this character to be a little bit less, still have good abilities, but like if we could have a 9, I just felt like that gave a lot more flexibility and a lot more pairings possible. So that was another of my choices, like kind of tweaking from as a necessity kit guidance, is that I felt like a 9 character was really useful.
All right. We ready to move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Last droid is the Plucky droid.
Yes, so I enjoyed coming up with like my own kind of lore with these non-uniques, of there being a pirate droid, and droid especially in art, like a lot of the cards that support droid um, aren't as universal. Like you have to have a droid to play them. It's a mod for droid, so I thought it was useful to have. And when you're looking, especially at gray, your options are really thin at something that could be a character from the FFG pool. So taking that old the BB9E die and just kind of repurposing it into another droid was one of the better options I thought. And also you can't have really strong dice because it needs to be a 6 cost. So while this one doesn't have 2 blanks like a lot of the previous draft kit guys did, it's all ones, and then his special has kind of a downside, which I thought helped bring him into balance.
I mean, discarding the top card of your deck in limited format is
It's a thing,
there's
especially
value
if you
there,
lose a
or the cost there,
a
I should
dice
say.
card or
Yeah.
something like it's. But if you're willing to do it, it's a damage and a resource. It's
Mhm.
it's worth having.
Yeah, fair enough. Right, card number 5, the SE14R Blaster. So in the, and actually I'll link it, sorry, up here to get my points correct. I'll link it up here. There's an article that was written by the Echo crew, and they're like, I don't know who the hell used this blaster. Well, Dean, you know who used this blaster.
Yeah, so this was me. I worked backwards from art a lot, and I was just like, I needed. And so in this case, the parallel was the Ascension gun,
Hmm.
which has kind of a certain look. And I'm like, okay, I need to find a gun that looks as close enough to that as I could. And this is actually Donald Glover holding his gun in the Solo movie. So this is Lando gun. So prior to him, I guess, getting the Night Sniper, this was a gun he was brandishing. So, and then I looked it up. SE14R, so it's not random. I think there is some kind of lore around this gun. Um, so,
As
and
per
it's a
as per
fun die.
Wikipedia, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Wikipedia or a similar site. Um, but Ascension Gun had a fun kind of die. I gave it a different special, and I thought stealing resources was kind of a yellow character thing to do. So yeah, so this was a fun one, and that does bring up when you get into the parallel dice, like with a draft kit, you really, really ideally want to get base sides. So that also cuts down how many parallel dice you have to choose from when you throw in those modifiers and things like that. Like, I want to make it so that you can put this gun on, a melee character you drafted, and like there's still resolvable sides as much as possible.
Sure. And as pointed out in that same article, that 2-for-1 discard side is actually pretty brutal and limited.
Mm-hmm. Although, if you look at the Allies of Necessity kit, there's a ton of discard sides in there.
There are.
And actually, another choice, the Eyes of Necessity kits were really, really stingy with resources. So Sniper Team, Hired Muscle, and Dooku Saber, none of them have a resource side. Only the support droid had a resource. So outside of the characters, you did not have as many ways, and then almost all of them had pay sides. So hired muscle, every side is a pay side. Sniper team had 2 pay side, half the sides you could resolve had pay sides. So the kit definitely wanted you to spend your money, and there's a lot more expensive cards in A-Rage. So I have more dice with resources than that kit, and so trying to get ways that you could ramp so that if you drew an Annihilator droid or a giant capital ship or something like they weren't impossible for you to do.
Mm.
You can get there.
All right, number 6, the hardest piece of art you and I had to come up with.
This was the worst, yeah.
The mounted laser turret. So walk us through this one. No one cares about the story of the art, but just to understand, this one was a pain in the bee. But walk us through this card, please.
So this is the triple laser turret die as the parallel. I didn't want especially because Poe has piloting. I didn't want the red die to be a vehicle, and then like red is just like super strong
Tracks makes sense
right off the bat. Um, so gave them this die, which is kind of aggressive. It's got lots of 2s and even a 3 side there, and then still wanted it to be a 2 cost. So then didn't give it like the most powerful ability where you can just reroll a red die. So um, when you play it, so like the not crazy powerful, but just useful, helpful stuff. And I always like the artillery kind of idea. And if you look at the die, it really zooms in so far on like just like the blasting end of it. It's like it doesn't have to be on a ship. It doesn't have to be a mod. It could be, you know, the tip of an artillery gun.
Fair enough. All right. All right. Next is the Inquisitor's lightsaber. There's a lot of blues. It's a lot of blues on a blue.
So this one, trying to look at the blue parallel dice, and especially because we had a villain character there, and if we're going to do Inquisitor, you want to do Inquisitor's lightsaber. Now, a criticism is that there are some Inquisitor lightsabers already in ARH, and even this name is kind of similar to one in there, but this is the fifth brother saber, which was one of those legendaries that like it was really terrible to get because him and his weapon were useless. So like, ooh, I can add value to those, sad legendaries we used to have. But then I immediately have to then solve the fact that it's almost all modifiers. So with this one, you get a power action. As long as you can spot a blue character, they all become base sides as an action. So then, yeah, even if you take a blue ranged character or something like that, you can still use these sides. It just gets a little bit more complicated later in the game if your blue characters eat it. Um, you know, you have to start to find some base sides for this to pair with. But it gets you a 3 side, which is pretty strong for a draft kit.
Right. And again, remember at this being 2 costs, this is not ARH standard legal, right? So.
Yeah, all these cards, all the characters don't have elite values, things like that. Like it's not could be used instructed. Although they've been doing a lot more crazy, setups for like their Tuesday night events. Like, hey, this thing is legal, so like they could do a night where these cards are legal for one event or something.
Sure.
But in general,
likely to happen actually at some point. Yeah. Or maybe they just do a draft or something. Yeah, completely fair. Mm-hmm. Completely fair. All right, next, Vibro Dagger. This card looks amazing, by the way. This card looks really good. So Vibro Dagger.
So this one's getting into because we had lots of vibro weapons. And I was going back through them. I was like, okay, we haven't used the word dagger yet. So boom, vibro dagger. This is the old vibro knife die, and I wanted to give it ambush, redeploy, so you have some kind of redeploy options. If your character's about to die and you're about to lose your Inquisitor saber, you can throw this down to keep it. But I thought the unblockable on the gray was a little too much, so I gave it the ability from the Dagger of Mortis. So like right before you resolve it, if the character you're hitting has a shield, you get to yank it first before you resolve it into them. So it's still got some shield hate, which is kind of inherent to the Vibro weapon class, but not as super potent, so I could still give it those other 2 keywords. And the hope with the draft kit is that you do like teach keywords to new players.
Mm-hmm.
Is the idea. So I did want to try to get a lot of the different keyword types in the kit. And, I only have so many cards to work with, so sometimes they get all bundled up.
Sure. And just to be clear, this is actually, you referenced Dagger Mortis. Dagger Mortis actually was any character, I believe, and this is specifically the character that's being targeted.
Yeah, which I think makes more sense.
Yeah,
If you're
makes way more
stabbing
sense.
someone, that's the person who should lose shields.
All right, next we have the speeder bike, which I have to love this piece of art because you found it on your own, and I've actually used it for a previous Dice Commando playmat many moons ago. But it's good art.
So yeah, a lot of the art I stole from video games.
That's right.
So trying to use promo art as much as possible. If they release this to media and stuff like that, people put in their articles. I was like, they're less likely to investigate the people using this art since they gave it to us freely. Kind of the theory, and plus it's higher quality art. If they want them to look good in their press kits and whatnot. This is also rescuing an old terrible die. The old speeder bike dice was awful. Um, so this is a case where it's like, it had twos and threes and base sides and just give it a different special, and that could be a decent die. So this is our three coster, but it's a vehicle. So now this is something Poe can pilot or anything else. If you have, if you draw mods for
I didn't
vehicles,
think
I want to
about
make sure
that.
you did have a vehicle in the kit um, that you could play mods and things on. And yeah, it's like a generally useful card and a little bit of speed. You can see I added a little bit of speed into the kit. So the droid, as long as you have a unique character, which you almost always do, he gets to activate with them. With this, if you get the special, you deal a damage and resolve another die. So like trying to add a little bit of speed to draft, which tends to be a little bit of a slower format. The little places I can where I don't think it's game breaking, but can we pace it up a little bit?
Sure. So could you say, Dean, that you lead with speed? Sorry.
Yes.
All right. Next is the best. I mean, it's not the best, but this is one of the keystone cards of the set, Stolen Uniform.
Yep. So instead of doing a character like the Claudite from Allies of Necessity who can take on any subtype, I wanted to have there be a card that you didn't have to take the 6 cost character to open up subtype support for you. So this can go into everything. And I think there's also a little bit of gamesmanship, which is fun. Like when you activate the character, like, okay, my character's going to be Jedi. And then it's like, ooh, what Jedi card does he have that he's going to play? Um, so that's kind of fun. But then even if maybe you drafted a couple cards and this helps rescue them, or one of your characters subtypes dies, but now you can still use those cards on the other one. But maybe after you've played those cards, you've got to that point, it still has a value being overwritten, where it becomes a one when you actually go into the overwrite function with it. So it's always kind of useful.
Yep. This is a great card. All right, next up we have Catharsis. A lot of back and forth on this one, actually, in the
There is. I
early
wanted to
days. Yeah.
lean into like the back and forth nature of Destiny, which is one of the strengths of the game. Not having that solitaire kind of feel. I'm gonna do everything I can. You do everything you can. We're gonna go back and forth. So like paying attention to what your opponent's doing. Oh, wait, my opponent just hit me. I can play this card and I can hit them right back. Um, so another thing I do with this kit. If you were to look at it, what a criticism you could levy is that it's not heavy on mitigation. Um, because of the larger health pools in ARH, um, games were sometimes going a little longer. The mill condition was getting a little bit stronger just because of the game's length. So I was definitely pushing damage a little bit. When we get to the battlefields and things, you'll see that. But can we move the end game forward with either ripping cards or hitting damage so we can not have to go 8 rounds into a game to get a winner.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, this one, special request to get the art correct, but chatty patrons.
Yeah, so it's coming up with downgrades. Like a lot of the more obvious choices I thought were taken, but in like every procedural, there's always like you go into the bar, like is this person in here, that kind of stuff. So I like that idea, and then this art is actually from the promotional art for one of the like cantina bars in Disney. but they had this nice moment of this guy talking to the trooper and pointing across the bar. So I like that idea that like, you know, there's some chatty patrons or telling the, people you don't want to know we're hunting for you where you are, and that idea that if so it incentivizes speed. So if when the character activates, you can turn one of your character dice to any side. So if you have this on your character, like you want to try to activate as fast as possible, you want to be in the pool before your opponent can be in the pool because they get to auto fix to their best side if you don't get to move on, which I thought was thematic. Like, they're getting closer to you and you're trying to hide, but like, people are pointing out where you are. You gotta speed up, you gotta hurry up or they're gonna get you. Um, and then also like just generically if you kill them you get a card.
Awesome. And I would also like to point out, I did not flip this image, and I'm pretty sure the pauldron is on the incorrect side of the stormtrooper. Don't they usually wear it on their right shoulder and not their left shoulder? But I did
Yeah,
not. I did not flip this image.
that could be. But it might have been drawn by a not crazy Star Wars,
Yeah. No,
because
no, everything is real in the Star Wars world, and mistakes are unacceptable. But
I didn't even think about it.
it's also first order, so I don't know. Maybe they flipped everything. I don't know. Whatever. Someone can tell me below. Maybe we actually just generated some comments. So there you go. See, look
Yeah,
how I
he's
look
a
how I
second
generate
stormtrooper.
engagement. There we go. All right. I really like this one, Dean. So walk us through the supply craft.
Sure. So this is actually the card that I think would be potentially the most broken if you did it in constructed.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are some fun interactions, which I've actually enjoyed. Like it's a fun splash play with this because it's a vehicle. So if you have a character with piloting, and Poe exists, um, you can activate him, activate this, and then you can basically add it as an ambush, play a card, which is kind of fun. So sometimes you can do interesting little trick plays with that. But I wanted to give a ramping card, and especially to red. I was trying to give each color a little bit. I mean, I get one character, one plot, one dice card, and one non-dice card. That's all I get to give each color, like a little bit of a um, you know personality. So red, I was thinking that they race and ramp, and so this is like the old supply team, but it can be used on any red card. So you can use upgrades, supports, events, whatever you have that's red, this can discount it. So it's generally pretty helpful as long as you draw into a red card. Um, it does seem pretty powerful when you get really good cards, and then there's the hand where you draw no red cards, and you're like, I can't even use my supply craft this round. So it's those kind of things happen too.
Yeah, I do want to point out in constructed, this would almost certainly have to be you destroy on use or something like that. Otherwise, this is,
It could get funny, and it's
yeah.
also another vehicle because like there are a bunch of vehicle mods and things. Like this is even if you don't draw into your speeder bike, this is another thing. Like you can throw your vehicle mod on this, and you can activate, and even if you don't have a red card to play discounted, you can activate it to get your mod in the pool. Just a little more options for you.
Mhm. Okay, fair enough. All right, next up is Bound. Actually, you know what? We talked about the art before. This one was actually, we had to go back and forth on the art on this one quite a bit as well. But
Mm-hmm.
this one I like.
Yeah, this one is I joked behind the scenes about like originally we had Ahsoka art, and do not Google anything related to Ahsoka and any kind of binding. That is a hole you do not want to fall down. So we had to switch the art. Now this is closer to because the interrogation chair is an ARH card that has similar art. He's not being threatened with a lightsaber in it, but it is pretty similar. Um, but I got to play with the renew mechanic, which I was excited about. That was one of the innovations from ARH. So with this one, we get to re-roll an opponent's die, and you give a character a shield, or if you play it from with a renew cost of 2, you get 2 shields before you re-roll the die. So it's mitigation, but it's not removal. They still get to keep their die, but you get the guarantee of the shields, and then hopefully you flip them to a dice side that's not as threatening as the one they were presenting.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. All right, next up we have Ride or Die. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, so this one I was trying to come up with extra ways to help with the subtype support, and also like I'm always trying to think thematically. So like when you go on these different missions, like here on the art with Andor, like if you were palling around with someone of a certain subtype, like you'd think you'd pick up a couple of their tricks. And so trying to come up with ways that you can give a subtype to a second character to open up different cards. And when we spoiled this card originally, we had limited it to just subtypes. But there is another card set of cards and card pool that you can open up if you can toss a color, and kind of went back through, and it didn't really break anything to do it. So we modified it to allow the ability to toss a color to a second character. So now if you have a card, spot 2 yellow characters. If you have 1 yellow character, you can kick it as an action, or as part of that action to give it to a second person. And then also there's a handful of characters where they're like their character ability or a card ability referenced it. And we didn't find those to be particularly broken, so let's open those up. So like Kira is an example where you can deal a damage to a yellow character. Like you could then exhaust this plot as you're doing her ability to maybe kick that damage to somebody else. It's kind of trying to open up the space with these cards, make more things playable and possible. And you do have an extra point available, a decent amount in drafting. So I just thought it was a nice way to kind of make more cards more playable, or maybe have some extra surprises come in or extra value come in of the cards that you have if you took this plot.
Got it. All right, moving on. Number 16, Easy Mark.
Yep.
I actually just
So
watched this
for
episode yesterday with my son, by the way, but that's
oh
neither here nor
nice,
there. So,
I'm still working on getting my kids to really get into Star Wars. We're getting closer. My daughter's 8, so she liked the Ewoks. I had to get some Ewok exposure recently. Um, with this, I was trying to make the plots more playable than the ones that were in Allies of Necessity, where like you didn't really want them. And I wanted there to be a case that, like, depending on which cards you got or what you wanted to do, you might actually like build around a plot a little bit. So with Easy Mark, um, oh, and another thing I added here was like the ability to deal damage to a plot. So that's kind of new. And there's also opens up more subtypes. So the yellow one adds Bounty Hunter, which is a very relevant subtype. But if you wanted to, you could sync damage into the plot instead of a character to then get resources. So it's 3 damage. You put that into the plot. I found that most of the time it's 2 dice. So basically, just turning 2 damage dice into 2 resource dice. I felt like was fairly fair. But if you draw like a big yellow, or something like that support, um, there are times where it's like, okay, I'm definitely going to use Easy Mark to make this card possible. There's other games where you want to sink your damage into your opponent, and you're just using this to get Bounty Hunter. It should be noted that you lose Bounty Hunter if you blow the plot up. So sometimes, like even if you wanted to immediately
mm-hmm.
get those resources, then you lose the benefit of the card. So you might want to like stick around a round or two, play your bounties, and then blow it up. But I thought it's a fun interaction as a way to get extra resources, as you need them for the yellow side, which is a tricksy yellow thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I like it. Right, and I just want to be clear for those reading who may be confused, or maybe not confused is the right word, but just a clarification. The damage goes on this card by you, not
Mm-hmm.
you taking it and then making money off of it. Right. I understand how if you're approaching this for the first time, one could potentially go down that road, but it's you resolve your own die against this
Yeah.
and then get a benefit from it. So you essentially sacrifice damage at the cost of, or for the benefit of making money. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be clear. Okay. All right. Next we have Call to the Council. That's a
Yep.
IRL Hera. There we go.
Yeah. So this is the same idea as a plot that can take damage. So it functions the same as the old Bubble Shield card from Effigiera. You can resolve, or you can take indirect damage specifically to this. So it doesn't block your opponent from resolving ranged or melee size or anything against you. But if they deal indirect, or if you deal indirect yourself, which is definitely a thing in the later eras of ARH, you can sink them into this. If you do blow it up, you lose the trooper uh, subtype bonus. So, like I said, one of those things that you might not necessarily blow up right away, but you definitely dump two into it, and then maybe sit on that third one until you're done referencing troopers, and then just help to give a little extra boost of health to your character pool.
Nice. Yeah, and then again, clarification, antithesis to what I just said. In this case, you distribute damage you are taking to this plot, right? Which makes sense because there's no bonus for it. All right, Gift of Shadows. Phenomenal looking card. Nicely done in the art choice, Dean.
So I love this one. This one also gets played a little bit more because witch support is definitely a thing in ARH, and then the 9-cost blue character is cheaper. So like him plus the plot as 11, then it's very similar then to the other characters, and it deals damage. So it just kind of gives you, even if you don't get witch characters, it gives you like the witch playstyle and archetype. So if you take the Inquisitor, you get the blank kind of Inquisitor tricks. Here you get witch, so you're trying to get odd numbers, things like that. So I thought it was a fun thematic way to get into like the flavor of those subtypes, or that subtype specifically, witch.
Okay. All right. This is Mos Eisley Cantina. Obviously, Dean, what you're seeing right now is vertical, but I will, of course, in editing, make it normal. But this is one of your battlefields.
Yeah, so I think the cards I redesigned the most was probably battlefields. They just break the easiest.
I can promise you it was the most because I had a hard time keeping track of which life of the battlefields we were on.
Yeah, because every time I came up with one, it was just like, and then you can just break it, or like it ends the game. So ultimately, landed on there's a battlefield for each win condition to some degree. Like this one deals damage. Um, there's a little bit of safety in that this is the old Cantina Brawl event, basically action as a claim ability. So you deal a damage to your opponent, but your opponent can respond if they discard a card from their hand. They can hit you back. So there are times, when you're nervous about claiming if you're low on health. There's a bonus, to doing it because while they get to hit you back, it costs them extra card. So I thought it was a fun interaction. And then if people do it a lot because might have a subpar card in your hand, it also is kind of fast forwarding us towards the end game. Both characters take a health ding. It gets closer to end game, kind of speeding up the draft experience.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to take a small part of credit for this. You and I talked about this card in the end state, and we thought having the Cantina Brawl part of it was the Cantina Brawl shout out was good.
Mm-hmm. That's perfect.
And then also a shout out. I believe this was spoiled on none other than Scum and Destiny, and I feel that's very appropriate for those D-gens. They're close enough to Canada. Letterkenny shout out. We can call them the D-gens. And I know they're not offended because I know they'll probably be laughing their butts off right now. So
they embrace it.
All right, next, Manned Outpost Navarro, because we needed a location and that's what we decided upon. Yeah. But Manned Outpost
could be anywhere.
Sure.
Yeah, and on the OTS spoiler that actually was done by EchoBase, they were saying like there's not a lot of milling going on in this art, and that's true. But I like the idea that if there's at least 2 cards left, you delete one, and in the art there are 2 stormtroopers, and he's actively deleting one. So I thought that was still thematically fun.
I mean, how much milling is there in any art? There's like political senatorial rooms. That's the milling, I suppose.
It was
so it could be boring ass outpost Navarro, and it could be like, I don't know. I don't remember what the old woman's name, but the BB whatever, B10 or whatever his name was, the little square droid that was in Cassian series. I'm losing my Star Wars card right now, but he could be like him sitting in a Senate room or something.
Yeah, but this one, yeah, as long as they have two or more cards, you can delete one, so you can, kind of hurt their rerolls, or if you're going actually actively going for a mill condition, you can make it a little harder for them, or if they're being precious about some cards, waiting for the next round when they get their money, you can maybe hit that, or make it harder for them to keep rerolling if they want to savor that big upgrade or support that they're sitting on. So I thought it was another fun interaction as
So
claimability.
I think you're underselling this card, Dean, right? The decision to land on the two or less part, I think, is actually really well done for limited format mill, in that you can't just strip a card, right?
Hmm. Yeah, you can't.
Or
Or
you
take the
can't just
last
strip
card.
the last card. Yeah, I didn't say
Yeah,
that correctly, but yeah,
you have
you
to
knew what
roll
I
a
was
discard
driving at,
side to get that
right?
final one.
Yeah,
So you do have to roll to get that final. But This can put them on mill tilt.
yeah, for sure. No, I mean it's clearly a mill card, and that's not a bad thing.
Hmm.
But you can't outright win the game with a battlefield.
Yeah, and you can with the other one, but if you're down to one health, and that's pretty close. We had a prior. One of the other designs was too indirect. You had to pay for, but I hated when you opened with it, because getting down to two health was happened more often, and just I don't like the opening move claim as a win. I don't like that as
Right,
much.
right,
Still can happen, but it's harder now.
sure. All right, and lastly, perhaps the poster child, no pun intended, because this is actually the movie poster, but of the set.
Yeah, so Noble Effort, inspired by Cracked Bauble and Flesh and Blood, just wanted to come up with a way that if you have, because these sets, I mean, ultimately, all of these sets were not designed with draft as a thing. They didn't have to think about that because they weren't making physical packs. So, like, we're making sets that weren't designed to be drafted draftable, and there's consequences to that. There are times when you don't get 30 cards. And because Mill is viable, I needed to have an answer for that. Um, so, Noble Effort is a card you can have as many of as you need to get up to a 30 card deck, and it is conditionally better than just a discard to reroll. So it used to be that, like, you'd find 27 cards you liked and then three that were just going to be discard to rerolls. This is like that. It's just slightly better. There are times when you will use it to reroll a single die twice, and there's other times where this is the card that when your opponent claims, you're going to discard this one to punch them back with the battlefield or whatever. So it just helps you get up to that count, and it's useful. It's a useful card. I found that I actually played it a decent amount in testing and didn't mind it. Like, when you get to the end, and this is your last chance to get damage for the end of the round, like the ability to re-roll that die twice
Mm-hmm.
does actually feel pretty good, but is a fair zero cost event.
I mean, it's not just fair. It's a great trade off, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. If you have 3 die in the pool, probably don't use it. If you have 2 die in the pool, well, now that's a decision point, now, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Is there one of them that you really, really want to try for more? Or you can discard it and re-roll them both. So I thought this was a fun, little way to get around one of the bigger problems, especially if you only take, well, if you take one color, you're gonna have a hard time. I think whenever I forced one color in a draft test, I often got like 18 cards, 17
Hmm.
or 18, and that's brutal. But if you only take two and you have to take the droid because you got at least one beefy character, you're oftentimes going to take like three copies of Noble Effort, something like that. That happens a decent amount, and I found that I enjoyed having this card. There are other times when I've actually discarded other cards to keep this one, so got some good use.
All right. Well, that actually takes us to the end. If I were to hit the next button, we'd go back to DJ, and I feel we need to finish on this card because
Yeah,
not only is it a beautiful card, but it's a very signature card, I think, for what Dean has done through this set. So, as we sunset this cast, Dean, what would you like to throw out there, give people advice on, and so on?
sure. So for this kit, like the whole idea was just to try to give an extra tool to the community for a new format. New ways to have fun with the ARH eras. These can help as you build some kind of a draft cube, You can have crazy Wild West drafts. Rando Mando recently did a video where he had like a streamlined version of it, where he went through and took, you get 3 characters and 5 other dice cards, and have like, because we don't have actual packs, driving, the temptation to customize your experiences is there. We can totally do that. So if people want to make, you know, drafts where they draft every set of ARH, if they want to get specific sets, if they want to take all those cards out that are suboptimal, so that you're always getting cards that are, more tempting to keep. They're all viable. How this is a kitchen table kind of format, and so the community is kind of going to drive to some degree how this goes forward. The kit is going to have the different eras in bags. They're going to be separated dice and non-dice, but the line I drew in the sand on those cards is that I wanted to get rid of cards that were like 90% of the time dead. I pulled those cards, otherwise I kept them in. Um, and that's kind of the more the Wild West, like at FFG. In the FFG era, there was a bunch of characters that were awful to get in draft. Um, and there's a bunch of cards that just don't perform as well in that format. That continues here in RH, but I felt like that was true to the format. I'm hoping people will enjoy that. I will say that the FA block is harder. You're going to have a harder time there. It's still fun. It's still janky. It's the jankiest. Um, but I hope people give it a try, and I hope it has a certain charm and appeal to people that like the impromptu battles with their dice cards.
Nice. Yeah, fair enough. Well, before we close out, the logistics are necessary, right? So again, below is a link to a PDF document that is ready to print for this set. It includes enough on the primary print includes enough noble efforts, I think, that you'll be good. If not, be a smart kid and figure out how to print just one page on your printer. I don't know what else to tell you there.
Yeah. Actually, it was Lando Wonka from Echo Base actually said a lot of people might have fun making this the back. So if you made this the card back, and then every card you don't use, the characters you
Yeah,
don't use, the block.
it's a good suggestion, but I also feel that others will push back that they don't want to use sleeves, or they want to use certain type of sleeves, or
I know.
right. Each individual has their own thing. So I have included at least what I believe to be a full set of noble effort. We will also include a snippet of the ARH card back, but that is again their property. So I have done my best to make it clear that it's their property. I've actually put a watermark on it, so it will be very clear that no one's hijacking nobody's stuff.
Yeah, but it's freely up on their website.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well, with that said, Dean, close us out, my friend.
Go Commando, baby.
Straight to it.
Yeah.
Go Commando.
Go have fun. Roll some dice.
That's right.
Go Commando.
Go Commando.